think every single person on this planet needs to be educated and re-educated about climate change. We are dedicated as the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change to embrace this education issue.
We can look into the eyes of our children, our grandchildren, and we can finally say, tell them that we have joined hands to bequeath a more habitable world.
L'accord de Paris pour le climat est accepté.
State Congress voted to ban abortion. Alternate universe located.
Global temperatures rise.
The effects on social media on Generation Z.
To avoid catastrophe, rising sea levels, and dying coral reefs. The epicenter of a global pandemic.
No exception for rape or incest.
So when we talk about greenhouse gases, we tend to focus on carbon dioxide as the main challenge, and fair enough. But of course, we know there are other greenhouse gases out there, and they can be even more powerful molecule for molecule than carbon dioxide. One of the most significant is the super pollutant methane. It's about 80 times more potent than CO2 as a climate warmer, over, however, a very short period of time. But it's also responsible perhaps about a third of the warming the world is experiencing now. So methane is a big problem, but it also offers big opportunities to buy more time. And that's a precious commodity, all of its own. So scaling up action to cut methane is a big fixture of COP30. And the big question here is, can carbon markets lend a hand? And the answer seems to be yes, because new methodologies have been delivered and developed covering methane emissions, for example, cattle rearing and rice production. And we're going to look at the opportunities, but also be mindful of the risks and perhaps the limits of what methane credits can and should deliver. But they're here and they're worth talking about. So with me on stage is Ingmar Rentzhog. He's the CEO and founder of We Don't Have Time. Ingmar, last year at COP27 in Baku, we launched the Buy More Time campaign. It's about addressing methane emissions. So tell us what it is all about.
I mean, if you look at what's needed to be done in decarbonization, we need to cut emission in half, and how it's going. It's not going. We're not going to make it if we only focus on carbon dioxide. We don't have the speed of change. We have a lot of things happening, a lot of progress in clean energy and everything, but we also have those that are working against change that do their utmost to slow us down, and in many cases they don't succeed with stopping it, but they succeed with slowing us down. And physics can't, I mean, we can't negotiate with the nature. Nature doesn't care if we want more time. I mean, the climate will go bananas if we're not doing this fast enough. So for COP29, there was really despair in the climate movement, because if you don't see a way forward, what's the point of doing it? People were starting to feel very depressed, giving up, etc., etc. And myself, I was kind of, this is not good at all. I mean, many people didn't acknowledge that 1.5 degree target is probably, I mean, we can get back there, but we will overshoot. That was kind of, people still didn't really say that outspoken, not so many anyway. It's different today. But when I heard about, actually we started to work with UNEP Clean Air Coalition, and you did a lot of interesting talks around the topic of methane, and I just saw that this is the solution, because methane is much more powerful, much more potent, 80 times more powerful when carbon dioxide. But what is untapped potential and not talked about and not even measured in the right way is that it is so much more short-lived. And if you see how things are working in the kind of emission trading system, how you measure emission, what have been done previously is that all emission has been recalculated to carbon dioxide equivalents. And you just take, okay, methane is more powerful, so when you multiply 1 ton with 80 and you suddenly have 80 ton of carbon dioxide. And you do the same with all other super pollutants and all other greenhouse gases. And you totally ignore the fact that those gases have different life length in the atmosphere. And this is really crazy. I'm a finance guy, and I also am a mathematician in my background. You can't just ignore the time dimension, because methane is like 12 to 14 years. And carbon dioxide, we talk about 1,000 years until it disappears from the atmosphere. So what this all means, if we focus on not removing, but avoiding to emit methane, it will only take some more than a decade until the methane is gone forever from the atmosphere. And this means, if you calculate it, that we can cool the planet with as much as 0.5 degrees. If we are avoiding all human-caused methane. That's of course hard, but I mean, we can avoid a lot. The technology exists, so it's doable. And if we do that, we will avoid all those tipping points, because we give more time to do the decarbonization. So that was the campaign we launched at COP29, and I'm very glad that this is something many more are speaking to today. But it's also a big problem, and that's in the geopolitics at COP29. I mean, most countries have really hard time to agree on decarbonization targets, phasing out fossil fuel, because if you're a fossil fuel company, you really don't want to sign your own kind of, I want to cease to exist. Not many companies want to do that.
Yeah.
But, I mean, fossil fuel companies, the methane for them is just a byproduct. So even them can agree on it. And in fact, many oil companies have methane targets, avoidance targets. So, and then I think it's almost 100 countries that have signed halving methane emission, etc., etc. So the politics to move in this direction seemed much more, higher.
They're higher now than they were before,
Exactly.
But I think, Ingmar,
US have
we need to wrap up here and just see a little video that you made. But
before we do that, since then, the geopolitics has changed, and the US are not advocating for decreasing methane emission. We even had them on a show in Baku. Now they are bullying European Union to cancel their own methane targets. So they just totally give up on this. And in order to explain this solution, we made an advocacy film to explain why is methane an important solution. I think we can watch it now.
Yeah, I think we can watch that now. Can we play the film, please?
This is the climate crisis today. We're kind of leaning backwards. And the more emission we put up there, the more we're leaning it. But we can still do this, right? The problem, if we pass 1.5 degree, and we're very near, we're kind of there, but if we stay there and we just keep going up, there is a big risk of hitting a tipping point. And when we hit a tipping point, this share will be very hard to put back up. So this is what we must avoid for the climate. And we have a cure for this. The only thing we need in order to make it is more time. We need to buy more time. And now we feel the resistance from the politicians. But when we're up here, they will not resist the green transition because the green transition are the majority. So the policy will change when the technology changes, but we need more time. So how can we get more time? the problem with carbon dioxide, when we emit it, it will go up. And it will stay up there for up to 1,000 years. Maybe we can kind of try to remove it, but it looks kind of hard to do it, very expensive. Methane is another greenhouse gas. It's a very common greenhouse gas. It's the second biggest contributor to global warming. And there's a big difference between methane and carbon dioxide. When we release this, it comes down again. On average 12 years. It's a big difference between 1,000 years, 12 years. So the solution here is that we need to stop emit methane. And if we do that, we can actually reverse global warming with up to 0.5 degrees. That is the time we need to do everything else, because we still need to stop the carbon dioxide. So this is great news. And where does this methane come from? This is one of the sources. Bananas. Waste, food waste. 20% of methane emission comes from waste. But guess what? When I arrived here this morning, I took the bus, and the bus in Sweden, in Stockholm, are powered with bioenergy. We don't emit hardly any methane from waste. So other countries can do the same. 45% from methane comes from the fossil fuel industry. And this is a lot of emission that is really easy to fix. It's just fix the pipe. Cows are burping 4 times every 5 minutes. Agriculture adds up to 40% of the methane emissions. Many companies working on this, where you have a food additive, and you give that to the cows, and they burp up to 80% less. So what do we need? We need to look at the fridge. All the fridges we had when I was a kid were powered by a dangerous gas. And when that was released up in the air, it was destroying the ozone layer. If we hadn't fixed it, we will not be able to walk outside today and show naked skin. But we're not doing that, because the industry, the manufacturers of the fridges, the chemical companies, and bold world leaders met in Montreal, where they decided to ban freons, phase it out, put the funding behind it, and today we have perfectly fresh food and we don't use freon anymore. Isn't it great? It saved humanity once, so we can do it twice. And there is one more thing. This year, in March, there was a new satellite launched that is called the Methane satellite. And it will measure open data where we have emission from methane, leakage, and we will know exactly where we need to fix the problem. We don't have that for any other climate gases, but we have it for methane. So a legal system, some funding, and the data is everything we need. And this is what Buy More Time is all about. We can do this.
Great, thanks. That's a good kind of explanation video on how we deal with methane and why we should deal with it. Look, as a follow and a quick answer here on this, Ingmar, we don't have time. It's launching methane credits. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, so as I said before, some countries are now moving in the wrong direction. And we need this solution to happen. We can't wait for the United States to get back on track or whatever. So that's why we are launching methane avoidance credits that we are sourcing with help of gold standards and other standards. So companies can cool the planet. Instead of focus on carbon, they can do it with methane. That cool the planet. And what we do is half of the money we use for advocacy, and the other half we are doing the funneling into the action on the ground. Okay. Because we need to do both. We can't wait for advocates, for the politics to catch up.
Okay, all right. So in the studio, we've got some terrific guests. We've got Sandeep Roy Chowdhury, is that correct? Co-founder and director of VNV, that's Value Network Ventures. Great to see you. Margaret Kim, CEO of the Gold Standard Foundation. Very happy to see you too. Ingmar staying with us. And on the magic of Zoom, we've got Robert Kelly. He's Air and Climate Business Development Director at Suez. Great to see everybody there. Margaret, let's turn to you. Yeah, could you maybe explain what the gold standard is? Because there's a lot of organizations that do something similar, but not as well as you do. Let's put it that way.
Thank you for having me, and thanks for that kind introduction. For those of you who are not familiar with Gold Standard, we're a global standard setting body created by WWF and like-minded NGOs to ensure that every climate action has a high environmental integrity and contributing to maximized impact in sustainable development areas. So we've been operating for 20 years, certifying over more than 4,000 projects in more than 100 countries. So we're here to really ensure, set the standard, make sure we certify and support the project developers to deliver that climate action on the ground in a credible way.
Okay. And obviously, methane is coming along. You've got methodologies now for rice. You've got methodologies for cattle rearing. So methane seems to be having its moment now. Is it because people are waking up to the benefits of methane, that it could be the emergency brake over the next 5 years, say, and longer, and that, you know, we need credible credits on this topic?
So I think, yes, we don't have time, and I think that's coming down really strong on everyone. And methane is one of the fastest way to slow the warming, and it's 80 times more potent than the carbon in trapping heat. So I think there's increasing demand and interest in investing into methane projects. And we already have 9 active methodologies across agriculture, like you said, rice methodology, livestock, we have series of methodologies there, waste management, even clean cooking, looking at capturing, avoiding methane. So I think there's a lot of, we're seeing growing interest from the demand side, but also growing supply of projects and ideas that are coming through. And to date, we've already reduced 500,000 tons through these methodologies. So we're looking to see that pipeline grow and action grow on the ground.
Well, I hope you inform the Brazilians of all these, so that, you know, they've got a lot of cattle, so it would be good. I don't know how much rice they have in Brazil, but they've got a lot of cattle, let's put it on. Okay, Sandeep, your organization, Value Network Ventures, develops projects that generate carbon credits, like those that the Gold Standard may verify. What can you tell us about the projects you work with, particularly those addressing methane?
Yeah, I think we realized that we didn't have time probably in 2010. So, and the very fact that we're still here saying we don't have time, yeah, it's something that needs work on. And I think we started with rice. I mean, I come from India. We grew a lot of rice there. And generally in Asia, we have like, I don't even know how many billions of tons of rice that we grow. So it was very important for us to look at how smallholders can also contribute to methane abatement, and methane not just being restrictive to larger industry level discussions, which it typically was till about 2014. So I think from our perspective, we needed to work with methane with rice, because it was also an adaptation part for the smallholder farmers with the water management. Water is not, it's becoming more and more precious as we move every year. So it was more from a perspective of how can we work with water, and methane actually became a derivative of it. But now it seems like methane is the actual thing that we should be working on. So yes, I mean, something that we've been doing, we are in our 9th year right now, and we're looking at, we already work with about 300 to 400,000 hectares of rice. We're taking that up to about 1 million hectares of rice across 7 countries in Asia. And Asia is going to be quite a big, has to be part of this whole methane solution.
What percentage of the methane emissions going to the atmosphere are coming from rice paddy fields? Do we
I
know?
don't have the exact numbers, but I think it's anywhere in the range of a quarter to about 25 to 28% is what I'm told. But that science is not something that I have. with me
that's okay, but it's
that's
significant.
what I was told. It's significant.
It is significant when we look at
And
it.
it is going to grow more and more. Food security is not going away. Populations are increasing. We have to grow our food more sustainably, and they have to be part of the methane solution.
Right. And these farmers are getting some money through the credit system, so they're getting help, as it were, for their livelihoods, and the world is getting less methane emissions.
It does. I mean, we're talking about smallholder farmers whose probably annual incomes are less than $500. So an increment of about what we see is an increment of about $40 to $50 per year on this. This is not insignificant. It's about 10 to 12% of their annual income. It really helps, and also the water saving, which is directly proportional to time spent pumping water, which is also expensive.
Good point. Let's go to our friend with Suez, Robert.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Where are you coming in from?
Paris, France.
It's probably a bit cooler there than it is here.
I can imagine, yes.
We're having global warming sort of in our face every day here. Robert, Suez works in water and waste management. And what is the relationship with these sectors and methane?
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned greenhouse gases other than CO2, and we've been focusing on methane, but there are others such as nitrous oxide, each associated with particular industrial sectors. So in the waste management sector, methane is a byproduct. For example, fugitive emissions coming from landfilling operations. The landfill gas is on average 50% methane. But I think two of the messages I'm hearing here this afternoon is, number one, in order to have progress, it begins with measurement. It begins with understanding what are the emissions coming, not from just theoretical emission factors, because yes, those are useful to a certain extent, but to make real progress, we have to get down to a more granular, site-specific level. And we partnered with Gold Standard to develop methodologies to allow us a bottom-up approach of in situ measurement of greenhouse gases, including methane, nitrous oxide, on the ground at industrial facilities, so we can develop, again, much more granular action plans on a site-specific basis to make real progress. And that helps also in carbon markets, because it gives us methodologies to demonstrate that we're delivering on our commitments, to showing tangible improvements, and that we're actually implementing what we're promising to do. And that ties in just very quickly to the second message, is that solutions do exist today to reduce methane emissions. Particularly in the waste management sector, green landfilling with modern landfilling approaches where we capture the landfill gas emissions and we put those to beneficial use to produce green electricity, or we divert organic fraction, reduce the organic fraction that we're sending to landfill, and we use those in specific methanization projects, again, where we're harvesting the methane and putting it to beneficial use rather than just letting it emit to atmosphere.
And water, people don't often think about water, but actually water can be a big source of methane, can't it? If it's wastewater, treatment works, but also in hydroelectric dams, actually, from the rotting of forests and other things. But maybe that's going a bit too far. But certainly wastewater has a big methane fraction that's worth capturing,
Yeah, we're working on projects literally every day around the world in the wastewater sector. Utilities are more and more engaged on this, and the biosolids that are collected from wastewater processing, again, can be harvested as a fuel to produce methane and to put it to beneficial use rather than simply losing it to atmosphere. And also nitrous oxide, which is, again, even a more powerful greenhouse gas, 300 times global warming potential versus CO2, is specifically emitted from the biological treatment of wastewater. So it's a real challenge that we're working on with many utilities today.
So at the moment, I get the sense that methane credits are a relatively small part of the market. Is that correct? But there is an opportunity here to maybe scale those up much more and contribute to more methane abatement. Clearly, they have to be in sectors where it's not so easy, right, to actually just normally get rid of the methane. It's to incentivize extra work, let's put it that way, to get methane out of the system. Is that correct?
And I think in that, governments play a tremendous role in creating that enabling environment for the private sector to drive these projects and investments. At COP26, 150 governments pledged under the Global Methane Pledge. That's aiming to reach 30% reduction by 2030. And many governments since then have been putting in place national action plans. So I think if we sort of connect the dots, the ambition is there, the will is there, and on the ground technology and solutions are already available. So how do we connect that dot? And I think that's where carbon market and methane credits or methane driven methodologies will really come in handy in bridging that financial and implementation gap. So I'm quite hopeful, and we're seeing the growth in our pipeline moving in that direction.
One last question just generally, and I'll come to you, Ingmar, because I know you want to say something, is there are no methane methodologies for the oil and gas industry. Is that because their methane emissions are things they should be fixing anyway without incentives?
I think there's one oil well methodology with gold standard, but I need to double check.
Okay,
but
fine.
I do think there is an intention to explore those opportunities and structures.
Okay. Ingmar, do you want to say something?
I mean, one thing that needs to be said, and that's really got me fired up about this, is it's the value for money. If you compare the cost of avoid methane compared to removing carbon, direct air capture of carbon, it's like a fraction. So you get so much more bangs for the bucks, because the reason you remove carbon from the atmosphere is to cool the planet. The reason you avoid methane is to cool the planet. I don't say we shouldn't remove carbon, but we should acknowledge that the carbon removal market, you have so many contracts that are paid, but it's not delivered. Of all the paid contracts for carbon removal, it's just a few percent that has been delivered. If you invest in methane avoidance, there is projects like we have here on stage that will deliver today, not 10, 20 years from now. And this is a crisis we need to act on today. Of course, we need to develop cheaper and better carbon removal, but methane is really good methodology we can focus on here and now, and it's very efficient.
Just coming on.
If I could,
yes, come in.
Just pick up
yes,
on.
Please do.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what Ingmar says, and definitely we're working on projects that are delivering return on investment very short. It's come in less than a year, because there is a lot of value out there, and we've been encouraged by the interest in industrial site operators to move from snapshot type measurement campaigns, now growing interest in real-time surveillance systems for greenhouse gas emissions, and using that for dynamic operational strategies. And I think that's really encouraging, and it's coming along with innovation, and as new low-cost sensors become available for measuring methane more economically, being able to put dense networks of instrumentation on industrial sites. Definitely encouraging, and we're seeing the level of ambition moving in the right direction.
Much here. We're just running out of time. So I want to give the last question to you. I'm sorry that we haven't come back to you. I do apologize, but we know it's tight right now. Quick question, really. COP30, what's it going to do for the methane credit market?
I do see methane as part of a bigger sort of GHG sort of carbon markets, because it already has a place there. So, and I am seeing very positive signals across the board from compliance and voluntary in moving and scaling the carbon markets and different partners working together. So I do hope that that trend impacts methane and more specifically the sustainable benefits that go to these communities.
Right.
So I'm quite hopeful that we are addressing some of the urgencies that previous speakers talked about.
So I want to say thank you to all the guests. It's wonderful to have a living example from the developing world. My girlfriend always says, why do you call it the developing world? I said, well, the UN calls it the developing world, but maybe the less rich world is maybe, I don't know how to frame this anyway, the global south. There are some poor places in the global north as well, but nobody ever mentions those. Turkmenistan or Uzbekistan or whatever. Yeah, of course. Yeah, exactly. But then to also have a large company like Suez also, so it shows the breadth of the possibilities here. Great work that the gold standard's doing. And Ingmar, these carbon methane credits that you were talking about, how do people buy them if they want?
It's really new, and we are looking for businesses and organizations that wants to buy those credits, but we're also looking for suppliers that can make the methane go away. So if you have one of those needs, reach out to We Don't Have Time, and you will find us on the website.
I think we're trying to walk the talk as well as just talk about it. Anyway, okay, thanks very much, everybody. That was very helpful. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye now.